Cash buyers are definitely changing the dynamics of the property market, and we really saw it last year. We did see a very sharp rise in interest rates. At the same time, it did have a very minimal impact on property prices. So property prices grew by around 8 or 9% last year, and partly it is due to cash buyers, but also due to other things such as population growth and housing supply.
Is this a story about the wealthy or people making cost of living decisions to relocate to less expensive markets?
It's a number of stories. I guess one of them is the result of an ageing population. We do have a lot of older Australians who are now downsizing. They've done very well out of the property market. They now have a lot of equity in homes that they likely own outright. So partly an ageing population. It's also got a bit to do with rising wealth. We do know that the rich are getting richer, and there is a greater concentration of wealth amongst the highest income earning and the most wealthy. But also the fact that people do use other forms of money to buy homes. So superannuation is probably the main one, particularly investors. A lot of people with self-managed super are putting money into property.
Do you know where most of the money is coming from? Is it locals and owner-occupiers, or is it a mix of investors, foreign buyers? Where do you suspect most of the cash purchases are coming from?
It's likely a mix of owner-occupiers, particularly older owner-occupiers, but also investors, so people particularly using their superannuation. When we look at overseas buyers, they are restricted to only buying new properties, so they were very active last decade. We did see a rapid influx of money, particularly from China at the end of last decade. That level of investment we can track very easily, and it's actually at very low levels at the moment. So most of it would be Australians. It's probably older Australians and also people with significant superannuation balances.
You did touch on prices briefly. How do cash purchases support the property market generally, and more specifically in the locations where cash purchases are happening more often?
For cash purchases that are downsizing, it's ultimately good for the property market. I mean, we know that a lot of older Australians are in very large homes. They do have a lot of capacity in their homes, a lot of spare bedrooms. So the fact that they are downsizing is ultimately good news because it does free up larger homes. Investors buying them through their superannuation is also good for the property market because it does lead to a greater number of rental properties. So that's a big problem here at the moment, that we do have too few rental properties. We need more investment in rental properties, so that will be a positive.
Given the RBA uses interest rates to fight inflation, what are the implications of a growing cohort of homeowners without a mortgage for monetary policy in Australia?
Fundamentally, the Reserve Bank aren't trying to control house prices with monetary policy. They are trying to control inflation. So last year, we did see a rapid rise in interest rates. It didn't have much of an impact on house prices. In fact, house prices grew quite rapidly in most parts of the country. So it's definitely a concern for the Reserve Bank, but it's not an overwhelming driver of what they decide to do with interest rates.
Nerida Conisbee, great to speak to you.
Thanks for having me.